talk about one of the most powerful tools in your automation toolkit, n8n Webhooks. In this guide, we're going to take you from a complete beginner, like zero knowledge, all the way to building and launching a secure, production-ready workflow. You ready? Let's dive in.
So here's what we've got on tap. First, we'll break down what a webhook even is. Then we'll cover the biggest mistake beginners make. After that, we'll actually build a workflow together, learn how to send a response back, and wrap it all up by securing it and taking it live. Let's get to it.
Okay, first things first. What in the world is a webhook? You hear the term thrown around all the time, right? Well, the easiest way to wrap your head around it is to think of it like a digital doorbell. I mean, think about it. Let's say you're waiting for a super important package. You've got two choices, right? You can either stand by the door and peek outside every 5 minutes, or you could just wait for the delivery driver to ring the doorbell the second they drop it off. It's kind of obvious which one's better, isn't it? And that right there is the huge difference. Constantly checking for that package, that's called polling. Your system is always asking, is there anything new? Anything yet? How about now? It's a total waste of energy. But the webhook, that's the doorbell. It's event-driven. An app tells your system, hey, something just happened. You're not asking anymore. You're being told, instantly.
Okay, let's make this super concrete. Here's a classic example. Imagine a customer fills out a form on your website, say a type form. The second they hit submit, Typeform instantly rings the doorbell. It sends all that form data straight to a special URL you've set up in n8n. And what does n8n do? It immediately wakes up, grabs the data, and fires off a workflow, maybe pinging your sales team on Slack. It's all automatic, it's real-time, and it is so much better than checking for new form entries every 5 minutes.
Okay, now for what I think is the most important part of this whole thing. Seriously, we need to talk about the #1 mistake that trips up almost every single beginner. This is the big one, the test versus production trap. So here's the deal. When you create a webhook in n8n, it doesn't give you one URL, it gives you two. And not understanding the difference between them is without a doubt the biggest source of headaches for new users. But trust me, once you nail this concept down, everything else will just click into place.
Let's break it down. Think of the test URL as your personal workshop. It's only for developing and debugging. You hit that Listen for Test Event button, and it's only active for a couple of minutes, just long enough for you to send some data and see it pop up right there in the editor. Now the production URL, that's the real deal. It's for your live running workflows. It only works after you've flipped the active switch on your workflow. It stays on forever, and you won't see data in the editor. You'll see it in your execution logs instead.
And this is the golden rule right here. If you try to use that production URL before your workflow is active, nothing will happen. It'll just fail. This is the error everyone runs into. So just burn this into your brain. Test URL is for building. Production URL is for when you're ready to go live. Simple as that.
Okay, theory time is over. Let's actually jump into n8n and build something. We're going to create our very first webhook workflow from scratch. It's going to be fun.
It's a really simple 4-step process. We'll grab the webhook node, set the right method, send it a little test message to make sure it's listening, and then we'll add a little bit of if logic to make it do something useful. So first thing we do inside our webhook node is set the HTTP method to post. You'll see other options like get, but for webhooks, post is pretty much always what you want. Why? Because post is all about sending a bunch of data to a URL, which is exactly what a webhook does. All right, now for the magic moment. We're going to click Listen for Test Event, which activates our temporary test URL. Then we'll use a tool like Postman to send this little chunk of JSON data over. See? It's just pretending to be a new lead from a web form. The reason we do this is so n8n can see the shape of the data, which lets us easily use fields like email later on in our workflow.
Okay, great. Our workflow can now catch data. That's awesome. But a truly professional workflow doesn't just listen silently. It needs to acknowledge that it got the message. So let's talk about closing the loop and sending a response back.
But why is this so important? Well, imagine you text a friend something important and they just never reply. You'd probably text them again, right? You'd assume they didn't get it? It's the same with webhooks. The system that sent the data is waiting for a "got it, thanks." If it doesn't hear back, it might think something went wrong and send the data all over again, which can cause all sorts of problems. A quick response is just good manners, and it makes your automation way more reliable.
And the way we do this in n8n is with the Respond to Webhook node. It's a special node that does exactly what it says. It sends a custom response back to whatever called your workflow. This is what's so cool. It basically lets you build your own little mini API, giving you complete control over the entire conversation. And you know what? Your response doesn't need to be complicated.
Most of the time, something just like this is perfect. A simple little piece of JSON that says, hey, status is success, message received. That's it. It's the perfect way to tell the other system, we're all good over here. I got it. You can move on.
Okay, we are so close. We've built the workflow, we've tested it, it even sends a polite response back. Now it's time for the final, and I mean critical step, locking it down and pushing it live.
Think about it. That production URL is just sitting out there on the internet. In theory, anyone who finds it could send data to your workflow. We definitely don't want that. So we need to add some security. And a great way to do that is with header authentication. It's like having a secret knock. The other service has to provide a secret password, or token, in the request's header. If that secret knock is wrong, or if it's not there, n8n basically just doesn't open the door.
And the best part is, setting this up in n8n is super easy. It's literally just 3 steps. You create a header auth credential, you make up your secret key and your secret password, and then you just tell your Webhook node to use it. That's it. Your Webhook is now secure.
All right, security is on, the workflow is ready, there's only one thing left to do. It's time to hit save and flip that little toggle from inactive to active. And just like that, our production URL is live on the internet, secure, and waiting to automate whatever we throw at it. We did it.
Let's just pause for a second and think about what we just did. You just built your own custom API endpoint. You didn't have to write any server code. You didn't have to deal with hosting. You just did it right inside n8n. You now hold the keys to connect basically any service on the internet to your automation. So the big question I have for you is, what are you going to build first?
All right, let's talk about one of the most powerful tools in any automation toolkit, the n8n Webhook. We're going to cover the whole journey today, from that very first test call all the way to building a secure, scalable webhook that's ready for your most important business processes.
So here's the game plan. We'll start with the basics, what I like to call the automation doorbell. Then we'll look at how to receive the call, decode what it's saying, craft a smart response, and finally, get this thing ready for prime time.
Okay, let's dive right in with the automation doorbell. I love this analogy because it really gets to the heart of what a webhook is and why it's such a game changer for how we build things.
So think about it this way. A webhook is basically a digital doorbell for your apps. You give out this special URL, and whenever something happens, say someone fills out a form on your website, that other app rings the doorbell of your n8n workflow instantly.
Now, this is what's called a push model, and it's way more efficient than the old way of doing things, which is called polling. Polling is like your workflow constantly calling another app and asking, anything new? How about now? Anything yet? It's annoying and wastes a ton of resources. With a webhook, the other app just tells you when something happens. It's the foundation of pretty much all modern automation.
Okay, so the doorbell just rang. Someone's at the door. Let's see how n8n answers it and figures out who's there. This part is honestly where n8n makes your life so much easier. And this is the best part. You don't have to do much. The moment that request hits your webhook URL, n8n automatically grabs all that messy, raw data and magically transforms it into a clean, structured JSON object. Everything, headers, parameters, the actual data you care about, it's all neatly organized for you. And here's what that organized data looks like. You've got these top-level keys: headers, params, query, and body. So if you need to know what browser someone used, you can just grab it from headers. If you need a value from the URL, that's in query. But the real gold is usually in the body. That's where you'll find things like the email address from a form submission. Understanding the structure is absolutely critical.
All right, so we've got the data. It's organized, we're ready to go, right? Well, not so fast. Just because you have data doesn't mean it's good data. And this next step is probably the most important one for building automations that don't break.
You know, you might be expecting an email, but the field is empty. Or you're expecting a number, but you get a word instead. If you don't check this stuff up front, your whole workflow is going to crash and burn later on. Trust me. So how do we fix this? With a little bit of code. And don't worry, it's simpler than it looks. This JavaScript snippet here, which you can pop right into an n8n code node, is your workflow's bouncer. It stands at the door and checks everyone's ID before letting them in.
Let's walk through what this little bouncer is actually doing. First, it grabs the data from the body of the webhook. Easy enough. Then it starts asking questions. Is this even a valid object? And most importantly, is there an email field? And does that email actually have an @ symbol in it? If the answer to any of these is no, It literally throws an error, stopping the workflow right in its tracks. But if everything checks out, it lets the data pass through to the next node. It's a simple but incredibly effective gatekeeper.
Okay, so we've received data, we've validated it. But a webhook isn't just a listening post. It can talk back. And this is where things get really cool, because you can turn your simple workflow into a full-blown interactive API.
And getting this set up is incredibly simple. It's just 3 steps. You start with your webhook trigger, flip a switch in the settings to using respond to webhook node, and then you drop this special respond to webhook node anywhere you want in the workflow. This gives you total control over when the reply goes out and what it says.
And what can you send back? Pretty much anything. You can send back raw JSON data for another app to use. You could show a simple thank you page with some HTML. You could even generate a PDF on the fly and let the user download it right there. Or, my favorite, after someone submits a form, you can instantly redirect them to another page. This is huge. You're basically building little custom apps right inside n8n.
All right, we've built a cool interactive webhook, but now it's time to level up. We need to take this from a fun little project to something that's truly production ready. That means it needs to be secure and able to handle some serious traffic.
First things first, security. By default, your webhook URL is public. Anyone who finds it can send you data. That's a huge problem. You need to make sure you're only letting the right people in. Services like Stripe and GitHub solve this with what's called a signature. It's like a secret handshake. They send a special code in the headers, and you use a secret key to verify that it's really them. This is non-negotiable for anything important.
So you've locked the door. Great. But what happens when your automation becomes a huge success? I'm talking hundreds, maybe thousands of people ringing that doorbell every minute. That's a good problem to have, but your workflow needs to be able to handle it.
And n8n has a secret weapon for this. It's called queue mode. But flipping this on, you can boost how many webhooks you can handle by up to 5 times. Instead of one person trying to answer 100 doorbells at once, you suddenly have a team of 5 people. It distributes the work and scales up your capacity in a massive way.
So to really be ready for the big leagues, you need to think about these 3 things. Queue mode is like adding more cashiers. You can even use dedicated webhook processors, which are like having a person just to greet people at the door, making things even faster. And then there's this word, idempotency. It just means don't do the same thing twice. Sometimes a service might send you the same webhook 2 times by mistake. You need to build a check to make sure you don't, charge someone's credit card twice. Super important.
And that's it. That's the full journey. From a simple doorbell to a secure, high-traffic API endpoint that can run a critical part of your business. You've got the complete blueprint now. So the real question isn't how to do it anymore. It's what are you going to build with it?